JP Neko here. So I finally bought and finished Final Fantasy 15, or how I affectionately like to call it, Boy Band Road Trip Simulator. And I'll be honest, I wasn't going to make a video talking about it because there's already so many out there with people sharing their opinions on this game. But my husband, the completionist, told me there are many videos, but opinions can still define your channel. It struck a chord with me, and plus the number of subscribers I have, so I guess someone out there must care about what I have to say, so here I am. I'm just going to cut straight to the chase here. There will be spoilers in this video, however, it won't be until the end section, so I will be giving a warning beforehand. So what are my first impressions? Well, truth be told, I was very skeptical about this game, and given the crap Square's been releasing the past while, that skepticism was justified. After the game was released, I seen the positive reviews it was getting, but I still did not take it seriously because I remember what happened to 13. All the praise it got. Well, we saw how that turned out in the end. But from that day forward, I looked at new games as a pot of soup. You won't know how it really tastes unless you let the ingredients simmer for a night or 20. Or at least until when people stop lying to themselves and lose their fear of insulting the chef and just flat out say, hey, this soup kinda sucks. So I took the approach of waiting it out to see if opinions change after the first few weeks of the game's release, and sure enough, most people still liked it. So I sucked it up and bought Final Fantasy 15 for my newly acquired PS4 during the last week of December. And it's good. I enjoyed the game a lot. I actually sucked up a bunch of my pride on this because I did not have high hopes for this game, especially with its troubled development history. That's not to say that there weren't many issues. First and foremost is the fact that the story was broken up into different mediums. When I buy a game, I just want to pop it into my system and get the entire story from that without having to do a ton of outsourcing. Kingsglaive wasn't great. I'm sorry, it's pretty and all, but when you boil it down, you don't really need to watch it to get the basic plot, because the events of the movie is mostly summed up in the game. If you really want to read between the lines, sure, you may need to see it, but overall, no, it's not a requirement. The anime Brotherhood, however, is better, and I do recommend you watch it. It gives a better background to the characters and it allows you to connect with them more. Why none of these things could not be done in the game could be due to its troubled development. Final Fantasy 15 had to go through a ton of reworks, most likely due to the negative reception 13 got, and there were too many complaints about the game's linear nature, though I think the term linear got misinterpreted. You see, in Final Fantasy 13, you were bound to a single hallway. Yes, there were plot points you had to fulfill, but there was no freedom between these points. Every Final Fantasy in the main canon had this. Yes, the story is linear and you do have to fulfill them, but in the meantime, I want to look around. I want to explore dungeons rather than walk through a singular path. Square was running on time restraints to create the open world, so it had to cut a bunch of plot points just so they could meet the deadline. So yes, technically we were sold an incomplete product. There are some rumors that it was done on purpose so that Square could sell DLC, but at this point it's hard to know what is true anymore with this company. Another thing I should mention is the game is really short, at least if you only play the main story. You will have to complete some monster hunting quests just to build levels and money, but that will only add an hour or two to the experience. Overall, the game can be beaten in just over 20 hours. The rest of the game is side quest padding, with no relevance to the game's plot, which I hate. Other Final Fantasies take over 30 hours to complete the main story, never mind the side quests that you can do. The main plot could have been made much longer if the Kingsglaive movie and Brotherhood anime was incorporated into the main gameplay. Think of all the exploring you could do in the city of Insomnia. But no, gotta make that deadline. While the game was gorgeous, there were some frame rate issues with the visuals. Sometimes the graphics would get buggy and the rendering would be delayed. I almost had to giggle when Ignis's food did not look as good during the first few seconds. Made me wonder if he was losing his touch. There were also glitches that could only be resolved with a reset, such as monsters not showing up in hunts, and there was an instance where there was no clerk at the hotel to buy a room from. Front desk goofing off? Wow, just like real life! Some glitches were downright hilarious, like this chick who was defying gravity during the first hour of gameplay. Speaking of gameplay, let's talk about the battle system. Everyone seems mixed on this. They either love it or hate it. I'm a bit in the middle. I did hate it at first, but I began to adapt and even enjoyed it to a certain degree. But I still think it should have been turn-based. The battles, most of the time, were a fucking mess. Especially within foliage and in close spaces. The camera just doesn't want to cooperate, and the worst thing about a game that tries to incorporate the demands of a strategic turn-based system into a fast-paced action battle, something is not going to meet in the middle and you may die a lot as a result. How am I supposed to step back and change my camera angle to a better view when I'm getting gang banged by 5 monsters at the same time? Another thing that pissed me off is the fact that I can't play as the other characters. Why not? Even in Star Ocean, you can switch between characters in the midst of battle to take advantage of their skills. But in Final Fantasy 15, I felt more like a babysitter than a warrior. Normally, I would just say fuck it and finish the battle while my comrades in arms lay on the ground. But no, I need them alive so they can gain experience. I don't even play as them yet, I have to level them up. If the other characters survive for more than 2 hits, this would not be much of a problem. But no, I had to take time out of slicing and dicing to give them potions every 5 goddamn seconds. It gets much better as the team levels up, but until that happens, looking after the guys is pretty tedious. The battles in which you fight alone, I will admit, are my favorite ones, because you can just go nuts and only have yourself to worry about. Just because I adapted to the battle system doesn't mean I fully recommend it. I mastered Parasite Eve 2, yet I still hate how that control scheme worked. The open world is great, which I will admit I was a little afraid of at first. The open world I am used to is the overworld maps in previous Final Fantasies. I was afraid that I would get lost not knowing where to go on quests, but those fears turned out to be unfounded because the game did a great job of making a massive world to explore that I did not get lost in. There's even quick menu options that bring you back to your car or dungeon entrances. That is a really good addition if you're having a really shitty time in a dungeon. The money system, however, sucks. You can only earn money by doing hunts, which I don't like. What was ever wrong with picking up gil after killing random monsters? When you look at it, 15 is doing the same sort of thing 8 did, giving gil out as a salary. Now I'm going to talk about perhaps the best part of the game, the characters. These guys are amongst the best casts in the series, and that's saying a lot because just about every Final Fantasy has a cast of characters that develop a strong friendship with each other. And you feel their pain, joy, and any turmoil between them. So not only do I value the time I have invested with the characters, but the chemistry between them as well. Except for Final Fantasy VIII. I wanted to throw half of that cast over a cliff, and that game had the balls to almost give me what I wanted, only to take it away while leaving me in a puddle of tears. One can dream, I suppose. But the relationship between these guys really felt authentic, and they don't always get along either. They argue, get sad, blame each other for certain things, and the playful banter you hear during the gameplay just makes you feel like one of the boys even more. Much of this can be accredited to the great voice acting. I really felt like the actors were working off of each other, though I never really understood as to why Ignis had a British accent.
Noct, would you mind helping me out tomorrow morning?
With what?
With whipping together some breakfast.
Throughout the entire game, I do not recall hearing anyone else having that accent. Why does he have it? Where did he pick it up? Was it his parents? If so, where did they get it? You travel to another continent and no one else seems to have it either. It doesn't sound bad, it just adds confusion to his character. If anything, he reminds me of Geoffrey from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, a British butler who occasionally cracks out witty one-liners. Prompto is my favorite of the 4. He's upbeat and has a good sense of humor. The best part is while he does whine, it's not overdone. If anything, it adds more humor to the game. If Prompto was real, I can see myself hanging out with him. Sharing our art, maybe opening a photo booth. I always found Gladios to be a little hard on the prince. Noctis is pretty much an average guy who is fully aware of his royal position and the responsibilities that it holds. Yet Gladios still wails on the guy for not taking things seriously. Dude, the guy is fighting gods to claim their power. I'm pretty sure he's taking it as seriously as it comes. Also, am I the only one who found it awkward when Gladios had a product plug for cup noodles?
Then, if you take something already delicious like cup noodles and add in the finest, freshest ingredients, what do you get? The ultimate flavor experience.
Cup noodles, the ultimate flavor experience. The side characters, however, could have used more work. Let's take Luna Freya for example. Don't get me wrong, she's not a bad character and she is super important to the story, but she just isn't interesting and I have nothing invested in her. The 4 guys talk about how hard Luna has it being an oracle and all and sympathizes with her, but I don't. I really did not care much about Luna at all. In fact, her portrayal reminded me of Sarah from Final Fantasy XIII. She is a character that is hyped and beloved by everybody, but most of the time you spend with her is done via flashbacks and some story-driven cutscenes. And when something happens, you're expected to care as though you spent time with her. Well, sorry Square, it did not work in 13, so it's not going to work in 15. If anything, it is Noctis that I sympathize with. He is doing all he can to reunite with Luna, and when there's a setback, he is the one I'm more concerned about. The antagonist Arden is definitely one of the best in this series. He toys with our heroes by first being helpful and then pulls shit that doesn't seem to have any clear motive, which adds more to his complexity. Though I will have to ask, what were they thinking when they designed him, because when I first saw Arden, I began to wonder, why was Dryden from Escaflowne doing in this game? Now here's the point of the video where I go into spoilers. I'm going to talk about some of the characters in more detail, and it does give away some pretty important details in the plot. If you've not played the game and want to have a spoiler-free experience, I recommend you stop the video now and come back once you've beaten the game. Okay? Here I go. If there are any major shortcomings in this game, it's the fact that it's not very good at conveying important plot details without having to read up on the lore of this world. You also need to memorize small details at the beginning of the game, like Noctis' full name, because later on Arden reveals his full name to be the same family as Noctis, and that is when things begin to make more sense. Square has not had a memorable villain in a long time, at least not as good as Sephiroth or Kefka, so they combined the two together. A baddie who slays the planet's savior and succeeds in plummeting the world into darkness. What an asshole. But he's just so good at it, and he does it all with class, which at the beginning makes you admire the man in a way. However, when you boil it all down, Arden's primary motivation is vengeance, which may seem petty, but because he's immortal and lived for thousands of years, bitterness has a way of boiling over. You see, Arden was a king of Lucius in the past, and was gifted with the ability to heal people by preventing the advancement of Starscourge. Because the demons tainted his soul, the Archers saw him as unclean, and he could not ascend to the next realm, or afterlife. He was demonized by a jealous future king who later became chosen by the Crystal. Arden viewed this as a massive betrayal and thus hated the Crystal and the gods from that point on, and made a vow to end the Lucian line. Final Fantasy Peasant has made an incredible video on Arden, and he explains his story much better than I could, so the link to his video is in the description. As I mentioned before, Luna as a character never really stuck to me, and even after her death following the Leviathan ritual, my heart really went out to Noctis. His pain was very visible, and it almost made you felt like your journey was in vain because you spent all this time getting to the continent, and Noctis only gets a glimpse of Luna making a speech. Ignis' eye injury had a large impact on the team, and having felt like I was a member of this team, it made me question if there's anything I could have done differently to save his sight. This one-sided character development is something Square has been doing a lot lately, and while I did care more about Luna than Sarah, having actual interactions would have made Luna's death mean more to me. Hell, I would have felt more emotion if it was Iris that got killed. The reason people were affected by Aerith's death wasn't just because of her personality and role she had in the game's story. She was a member of the team, whom you fought with, bought equipment for, taught techniques to, equipped materia on. Luna did not have any of the same development with the player like Aerith did. And to me, that was a big flaw Square made if they were trying to develop an investment in a video game character. Well, that's all I have to say about Final Fantasy 15. I am glad I played it, and it has given me some restored faith for the future entries in the series. With the highly anticipated remake of Final Fantasy 7 coming up, I really hope Square relearns what made their games great to begin with. Fun gameplay with engaging stories, interesting characters, and lore that is easy to understand, yet have enough twists just to throw us into the loop. You're going in the right direction, Square. Don't wander off the path.